No oil, no gold, no farmland worth mentioning, not even a river to drink from. And yet, somehow, on a speck of limestone barely bigger than Manhattan, tens of thousands of people live better than most of the planet. This is the story of Bermuda, a place that should never have worked, and somehow became one of the richest addresses on Earth. So how does a nation with nothing end up with everything? Say the word Bermuda to most people, and their minds drift somewhere warm and Caribbean. Palm trees, cruise ships, maybe a mysterious triangle where planes disappear. They're wrong on almost every count. Bermuda isn't in the Caribbean at all. It sits alone in the North Atlantic, closer to Canada's fishing waters than to any tropical archipelago. It is, geographically speaking, one of the most isolated inhabited places on the planet. Pull up a map and try to find its neighbors. You won't. The nearest scrap of land is Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, nearly 1,050 kilometers away across open ocean. Keep going east instead, and you won't hit another coastline until you slam into Morocco, more than 4,800 kilometers later. In between, nothing. No islands to break the swell. No shipping lanes lined with friendly ports. Just water, wind, and horizon, over and over again. Technically, Bermuda isn't one island. It's roughly 180 of them, though only about 7 are large enough to matter, connected by a scatter of causeways and bridges. Stack every scrap of land together and you get barely 54 square kilometers. Manhattan is bigger, and yet, on that impossibly small footprint, more than 60,000 people have built one of the highest standards of living anywhere on Earth. How does that even happen? To understand it, you have to go back more than 4 centuries to a shipwreck nobody planned for. In the summer of 1609, an English ship called the Sea Venture was sailing toward the young colony of Jamestown, Virginia, loaded with settlers and supplies. A hurricane caught them mid-ocean. For days the crew fought to keep the ship afloat, bailing water by hand as the storm tore the vessel apart beneath them. Then, through the rain, someone spotted land. The captain deliberately ran the crippled ship onto the reefs surrounding Bermuda, not out of surrender, but because it was the only way to save the passengers from drowning. Every single person aboard survived. What they found on shore should have terrified them. There were no rivers, no lakes, no streams cutting through the hills, just a lump of porous limestone rock in the middle of nowhere, offering nothing that a colonist's survival manual would have called livable. And yet, instead of despair, something unexpected happened. The island had wild hogs to hunt, fish practically leaping out of the reefs, and a climate mild enough that nobody froze. Some of the survivors liked it so much they refused to leave when rescue ships finally arrived. Word got back to England, colonists followed, and a permanent settlement took root on a rock that, by every conventional measure, should have been uninhabitable. Before we go further, tell us in the comments what time it is where you're watching this, and which country you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far this story travels. Now let's go back another 30 million years to understand exactly what kind of rock these survivors had washed up on. Bermuda looks, from a satellite photo, like a fishhook of pale land dropped into deep blue water. What that photo doesn't show is the 4 kilometers of ocean floor underneath it, or the extinct volcano hiding at the very bottom. Somewhere between 30 and 35 million years ago, a volcanic hotspot pushed a mountain up from the seafloor. Eventually, the volcano died, its peak sinking slightly below the surface. But nature wasn't finished building. Over millions of years, coral colonies took hold on the submerged volcanic summit. Shells, sand, and marine sediment piled on top layer after layer, compressing over time into a limestone cap nearly 60 meters thick. That cap is what people actually stand on today when they walk Bermuda streets, not volcanic rock, but ancient compressed reef and seabed, hardened into stone. It's a remarkable inheritance. It's also a curse. Limestone is soft and full of tiny holes. Geologists call it porous, which means water doesn't sit on top of it. It sinks straight through, disappearing into the ground within minutes of hitting the surface. No lakes can form. No rivers can carve a path, which means the very rock that built Bermuda is the same rock that made fresh water nearly impossible to find. We'll come back to that problem, because the way Bermudians solved it is one of the more clever adaptations you'll see anywhere in the world. But first, the ocean. Bermuda doesn't just sit in the Atlantic, it sits inside something stranger, the Sargasso Sea, the only sea on Earth with no coastline at all. Instead of land, it's bordered entirely by ocean currents, 4 of them circling in a slow clockwise loop, trapping calm water, drifting seaweed, and warmth inside. The most important of those currents is the Gulf Stream, a river of warm water flowing up from the tropics. It wraps around Bermuda and keeps the island noticeably warmer than any other landmass at the same latitude, which is why palm trees and hibiscus can grow on an island that shares its latitude with North Carolina and Morocco. That warmth built an underwater world found almost nowhere else on the planet, coral reefs surviving further north than anywhere on Earth, and water so clear that divers can sometimes see 60 meters straight down. It also explains a detail every visitor asks about: the beaches. Horseshoe Bay, Bermuda's most photographed stretch of sand, isn't white. It's distinctly, unmistakably pink. For years, visitors assumed it came from crushed red coral. The real answer is stranger. Microscopic sea creatures called Homotrema rubrum live in the reefs offshore, encased in tiny red shells. Parrotfish eat them, grind the shells down as they feed, and excrete the crushed fragments as fine red sand, which mixes with the ordinary white sand along the shoreline. The result, over thousands of years, is a beach that blushes. The same waters that colored the sand have also swallowed hundreds of ships. More than 300 wrecks rest on the seafloor around Bermuda, victims of hidden reefs and violent storms across 4 centuries of shipping. Divers now treat the wreck field as an open-air museum, one where coral has slowly reclaimed the hulls and turned tragedy into habitat. There's a second world hidden underground, too. Inside Crystal Cave, carved out roughly 30,000 years ago during the last ice age, mineral-rich rainwater dripped for millennia to form pale limestone columns, and a lake so still and clear it looks like glass. It's a reminder that Bermuda's beauty didn't happen on the surface alone. It was built in the dark, drop by drop, over unimaginable stretches of time. Which brings us back to water, or rather, the total absence of it. Here's Bermuda's central paradox: an island completely surrounded by water, where almost none of that water is safe to drink. Dig a well, and you won't find fresh groundwater. You'll find brackish, salt-tainted seepage, filtered up through porous limestone from the surrounding ocean. There are no rivers, no natural lakes of any real size. In most parts of the world, rain is background noise, something you complain about on your commute. In Bermuda, every drop that falls from the sky is treated like currency. So Bermudians built their entire architecture around catching it. Fly over the island, and you'll notice something odd. Every roof is a staircase. Each Bermudian house is topped with layered, stepped limestone tiles, painted a brilliant white, engineered specifically to funnel rainwater down through a series of channels into a storage tank buried beneath the house. It isn't optional, it's the law. Bermudian building codes require every new home to include a water catchment roof sized to its footprint, along with a tank large enough to store what falls on it. The white paint isn't just for looks, either. It reflects sunlight, which keeps the collected water cleaner and the house underneath noticeably cooler. The heavy limestone tiles double as storm protection, anchoring the roof against hurricane winds that would tear a lighter structure apart. Nobody designed this system in a lab. It evolved, house by house, generation by generation, because the island simply refused to give its people any other choice. What looks today like a charming architectural quirk, those postcard-perfect white rooftops, is actually one of the oldest, most disciplined water security systems on Earth, hiding in plain sight. Step off a plane in Bermuda, and the first thing you'll notice is what's missing: traffic. No honking, no gridlock, no 8-lane highways slicing through the landscape. Since 1951, Bermudian law has limited each household to a single car, and visitors aren't allowed to rent private vehicles at all, full stop. It was an extraordinarily early piece of legislation, decades before most of the world started worrying about congestion or emissions. Instead, the roads belong to scooters, bicycles, and small pink and blue buses winding between hedgerows and pastel-painted cottages. On an island this size, nothing is really far away. A commute to work, a school run, a trip to the corner shop. Most of it happens in minutes, on two wheels, close enough that you'll probably wave at someone you know along the way. Ferries hop between the main islands across water, so clear it barely looks real, carrying commuters the way a subway would in a larger city. It's a slower rhythm of life, one built by necessity rather than nostalgia. But it has quietly shaped something else, a level of community that's increasingly rare in the sprawling, anonymous cities much of the world now lives in. That closeness, though, coexists with a harder economic reality. Nearly everything Bermuda's residents eat, wear, or build with has to cross an ocean first. Every imported apple, every roll of lumber, every replacement part adds shipping cost on top of shipping cost, which is part of why Bermuda is also consistently ranked among the most expensive places to live on the planet. So if the land offers nothing, and even groceries carry an ocean surcharge, how does anyone here get rich? The answer sits in downtown Hamilton, Bermuda's capital, where a strange rule governs the skyline. No building is allowed to rise taller than the spire of the city's cathedral. So instead of glass towers, Hamilton's financial district is a row of low, pastel-colored buildings a short walk from the harbor, utterly unassuming from the outside. Behind those modest walls, though, some of the largest financial transactions on Earth are signed every single day. Bermuda is one of the global capitals of reinsurance, essentially, insurance for insurance companies. When a hurricane flattens a coastal city or an earthquake levels a region, it's often a Bermuda-based reinsurer quietly absorbing part of that financial shock behind the scenes, so that ordinary insurance companies don't collapse under the weight of the payout. It sounds abstract, but the scale is anything but. Bermuda-based firms handle more than a third of the world's reinsurance market and provide more catastrophe coverage to American insurers than any other jurisdiction on Earth, managing assets that run into the trillions of dollars. Think about the irony of that for a second. An island that spent centuries learning to survive hurricanes, water shortages, and shipwrecks has become the place the rest of the world turns to when it needs protection from exactly those kinds of disasters. Bermuda didn't find wealth underground. It found it by becoming extremely good at managing risk it understood better than almost anyone else on Earth. For all its modern banking towers and international law firms, Bermuda has held on to something a lot of wealthy places lose along the way, a genuinely distinct culture that money never managed to flatten. Start with the clothes. Walk through Hamilton on a weekday and you'll see bankers and government officials in full business dress, blazer, tie, dress shirt, paired unmistakably with tailored knee-length shorts and knee-high socks. Bermuda shorts trace back to the late 1800s, when British soldiers stationed on the island asked tailors to shorten their trousers because the heat was unbearable. By the 1920s, Hamilton's businessmen had adopted the look themselves, and it eventually became standardized official office attire. Even Bermuda's premier shows up to formal engagements in shorts and a blazer. It's one of the only places in the world where that's not just accepted, it's expected. Then there's Gombe, and this one carries far more weight than a fashion trend. When drums start echoing through Bermuda streets during a Gombe performance, dancers appear in explosive costumes, towering peacock feather headdresses, brightly beaded masks, ribbons in motion with every step. It looks, on the surface, like pure celebration. But Gombe was born out of hardship, created by enslaved Africans brought to Bermuda, who used it to keep their own artistic and spiritual traditions alive under conditions designed to erase them. The masks weren't decoration, they were disguise, hiding dancers' identities from slave owners who saw the tradition as dangerous enough to restrict or ban outright for long stretches of history. Gombe survived anyway. Today, it isn't hidden at all. It's performed openly, proudly, at festivals and public celebrations, a direct thread connecting modern Bermuda to the resilience of the people who built it under far crueler circumstances than water shortages or isolation. That's really the through line of this entire island. Constraint met again and again with adaptation, until the constraint itself becomes part of the identity. Say Bermuda to a stranger, and there's a decent chance the very next word out of their mouth is triangle. For decades, the idea of the Bermuda Triangle, a stretch of ocean supposedly swallowing ships and planes without explanation, has done more to put this island on the world map than almost anything else about it. It's also largely a myth built on selective storytelling. The triangle itself isn't even a fixed official region. Its corners shift depending on which book or documentary is telling the story, usually stretched loosely between Bermuda, Miami, and Puerto Rico. Statistically, the area doesn't lose ships or aircraft at a higher rate than any other heavily trafficked stretch of ocean. Coast Guard records and maritime insurers, who have every financial incentive to track this kind of risk accurately, have found nothing unusual about it at all. What actually explains most of the famous disappearances is far less mysterious. Sudden Atlantic storms, strong and unpredictable currents, dense shipping traffic, and in more than one famous case, simple human error. And yet, the myth persists decade after decade, because a good mystery travels further than a good spreadsheet ever will. For Bermudians themselves, the whole thing has become something closer to a running joke than a genuine local legend. A story tourists arrive already believing, that locals have learned to smile through. If anything, it's proof of how a single sensational rumor can outshine a place's actual, far more interesting story. An island that quietly built one of the most resilient economies on Earth, while the rest of the world was busy imagining sea monsters and vanishing compasses just offshore. The real disappearing act in Bermuda's history isn't ships. It's freshwater, land, and natural resources, all missing from day one. And unlike the Triangle's myths, that scarcity was very real, which makes what Bermudians built in spite of it even more impressive. There's one more piece of the puzzle worth understanding, because it explains why Bermuda still looks the way it does after 4 centuries of ships, storms, and settlement. The island has spent decades treating its surrounding reef as infrastructure, not just scenery. Those coral reefs aren't just where the parrotfish live and the pink sand comes from. They function as a living seawall, absorbing the force of incoming waves before they ever reach the shoreline. Damage the reef, and you don't just lose a diving spot, you lose a chunk of the island's natural storm defense. Bermuda has responded with some of the strictest marine protections in the Atlantic. Fishing restrictions, protected zones around the most fragile reef systems, and strict controls on anchoring in sensitive areas. It's a pattern that shows up again and again on this island. Nothing here was ever abundant enough to waste. Every resource, rainwater, land, reef, even road space, has had to be managed with a level of discipline that larger, resource-rich countries rarely bother to adopt until scarcity forces their hand. Bermuda simply started that discipline 3 centuries earlier than most places, because it never had the luxury of not caring. It would be easy to end the story here. Pink sand, reinsurance billions, a culture that refuses to disappear. But that would be an incomplete picture, and Bermuda itself would be the first to tell you that. Isolation cuts both ways. The same distance from the mainland that gives Bermuda its postcard scenery also drives up the cost of virtually everything: housing, groceries, construction materials, even basic healthcare supplies. Space is brutally finite. There's no expanding outward when every square meter of land is already accounted for. And every single hurricane season is a reminder that this entire economy and every home on it sits directly in the path of the Atlantic's most violent storms. Climate change and rising sea levels only sharpen that anxiety for a low-lying island with nowhere higher to retreat to. None of that is hidden from the people who live there. Ask most Bermudians and they'll tell you plainly, life here isn't cheap and it isn't easy. But then they'll usually tell you they wouldn't trade it. Because for the people who grew up here, Bermuda was never really a line item on a map. It's the road they rode their bikes down to school. It's the shoreline tied to 100 ordinary afternoons. It's a white-roofed house that has caught rain for 3 generations of the same family. Convenience was never really the point. Belonging was. Strip away the pink sand and the billion-dollar reinsurance contracts, and Bermuda's real story isn't about luck. It's about a small number of people who kept refusing to accept impossible as a final answer. No fresh water? Build a roof that becomes a reservoir. No natural resources? Turn shipbuilding and later financial risk into an export. No room to expand? Build a culture so specific and so proud that it couldn't be replicated anywhere else, no matter how much money tried to imitate it. In the end, Bermuda isn't remarkable because of what it has. It's remarkable because of everything it never had, and built anyway. That's our journey through Bermuda. If you enjoyed uncovering this story with us, subscribe for more, and we'll see you on the next island.